Still working through the Central notes and the West notes for the National League over at BangTheBook.com. Hoping to have that up here. Hoping to get all 5 in the Central up today, the NL West up tomorrow, and then we'll have all that ready to go by the time that everybody gets back in action on Thursday. Also over at BangTheBook.com, where we are your one-stop shop for sports betting news and information. Make sure you're checking out Kyle Hunter's daily college basketball picks every day. Same thing with Parker Michaels' NHL picks, as both of those seasons wind down here a little bit. My MLB picks and tips piece, probably a good idea to bookmark that page right now. That will be updated on a daily basis beginning Thursday, and we'll do that throughout the rest of the regular season and also carry that all the way through the Major League Baseball playoffs. Also, check out my 30 MLB season win totals. You can find that guide over on Amazon. Search 2019 MLB Betting Season Preview. You'll find that result on Amazon. If you don't have a Kindle or a Fire or Paperweight, whatever the hell the other thing is, you can get the Kindle app for both Android and for your Apple devices. So that will allow you to download that guide over there on Amazon, or you can get the PDF from BangTheBook.com, or you can go through and look article by article with that season win total primer link that I have usually up on the front page. As you know, this and every edition of Bang the Book Radio presented by our friends over at DSI Sportsbook. BTB and the number 200 is that promo code. 100% deposit match bonus for the Sportsbook, 100% deposit match bonus for the live casino at BetDSI. It's only a game until you bet it. As far as next week goes, we're going to do Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday shows once again. We'll move Brad Powers from Tuesday to Monday. So Monday we'll have the Monday mailbag for about 15 or 20 minutes, then chat with Kyle Hunter about the Sweet 16 and the Elite Eight. Then we'll talk with Brad Powers. And then on Tuesday, we'll go Brian Blessing, Rolf Michaels, and Tony George on that show. And then Wednesday, likely Wes Reynolds and Kyle Hunter. No shows, no full shows Thursday and Friday. Look, there's only so many ways we can talk about the Sweet 16 and the Elite Eight. I'm hoping to do a Bettor's Box on Thursday. I will try to get that out to you. I've got something going on there Thursday morning, so I will do the best that I can to get that Bettor's Box out to you on Thursday. Should be able to do it. Don't see why I wouldn't be able to, but just to give you a little bit of a heads up on what we have going on next week. And obviously when it comes to the Bettor's Box, just me talking baseball for 30 to 45 minutes, however long it goes, however many talking points I have. If you want the notes from the MLB segments, and I'll send over the NL Central along with the NL West here today. If you want the notes for the MLB segments or for the Bettor's Box, Adam at BangTheBook.com will get you on that email list. Just shoot me a note. Let me know that you want to be on the list for notes, and then I'll make sure that I update my master list, and you'll get those every Monday and Thursday when I record the Bettor's Box here on Bang the Book Radio. All right, so with that, let's take a look here at the National League West Division. Talked about the Central on yesterday's show. Also talked about the UFC event with Christian Pina. The Central has 5 very strong teams. The East has 4 very strong teams. I think there are 2 strong teams here in the West, and the other 3 teams pretty clearly off the pace. We'll go in alphabetical order once again here today, beginning with the Arizona Diamondbacks. 82-80 last year. Their season win total here this year, 75.5. Some pretty substantial losses for the Diamondbacks. And really, the Diamondbacks were a better team than that 82-80 record would suggest, but they really fell off the pace in September. And Mike Hazen, sort of seeing the writing on the wall here with this team, did trade Paul Goldschmidt to St. Louis, got a couple of pitchers back in that one, including Luke Weaver, who should be in the starting rotation here, also catcher Carson Kelly. And then you lose Patrick Corbin and A.J. Pollock to free agency, and it's very hard to replace guys like that, especially somebody like Corbin, who had morphed into a frontline starter with that very heavy slider usage. There's just not much that Arizona could do to replace him. Now, what's interesting is that they're going to try and compete and rebuild at the same time. And there is a path for the Diamondbacks to do this. I mean, look, yes, they lost Goldschmidt. Yes, they lost Pollock. When you look at them from last year, it's actually a wonder that they were in the race for as long as they were, because Jake Lamb, who hit 30 home runs, had a 13.7% walk rate, a 111 weighted runs created plus, and a 353 WOBA in 2017, missed most of 2018. When he was out there, he wasn't particularly effective anyway. And also the same thing here for Steven Souza Jr. In his last year with the Rays, 120 WRC plus. Weighted runs created plus is an advanced offensive metric where 100 equals league average. So if you have a 100 WRC plus, you're a league average hitter. That is adjusted for the league and also for the park factor. For Souza, with a 120 weighted runs created plus, means he was 20% above league average and had a 348 WOBA for the Rays in 2017. Once again, like Jake Lamb, missed a big chunk of 2018, kind of a lost season there for him. So the Diamondbacks have some guys they can hope for bounce backs from, namely Jake Lamb and Steven Souza. The projection systems really like Wilmer Flores this year. They traded for Eduardo Escobar last year at the trade deadline. And, of course, David Peralta, who had a big year for them last year, 368 WOBA, 130 WRC+, hit 30 home runs. There is a path to see the Diamondbacks have at least an average offensive team this year. And that would be a big help because I still like this starting staff. I like Zach Godley. I like Robbie Ray. I like Zach Greinke. We'll see what the depth looks like with Merrill Kelly, who comes over from the Korean Baseball Organization. And then also Luke Weaver comes over in that Goldschmidt trade from the Cardinals. This rotation might not be that bad. Robbie Ray last year in the second half allowed a 196 batting average at 315 on base, 325 slugging percentage, a 290 WOBA against. He was hurt in the first half once again, so it took him some time to settle in. And Robbie Ray's a tough guy to figure out. He's a very frustrating guy to back because he strikes out a lot of guys, he walks a lot of guys, gives up a lot of home runs. So in a general sense, Robbie Ray, because of the strikeouts and walks, usually a 5 and fly or a 5 1/3 type of guy. Then you factor in that home run problem, and it's really all a matter of when those home runs happen. He also doesn't have the greatest command, so he generally runs a pretty high batting average on balls in play as well. So are those home runs solo shots? Are they those back-breaking 3-run shots? It's very tough with a guy like Robbie Ray, but in the second half last year, much better than he was in the first half. So that'll be something you may want to keep an eye on here. I don't love this bullpen. I mean, if Greg Holland looks like the Greg Holland of old and Archie Bradley can get back on track after a horrible second half, maybe this bullpen's a little bit better, but I think this is one of the weakest bullpens here in the National League. There are some health concerns as well, especially with a guy like Holland, who has a pretty extensive injury history here in recent years. So that's a concern for me because you look at a guy like Zach Godley, and he'll be the player to watch here that I isolate. In 2017, Godley had a 3.37 ERA with a 3.41 FIP and a 3.32 xFIP. Well, last year, a 4.74 ERA, 3.82 FIP, 3.96 xFIP. So this is one of those positive regression candidates here for the Diamondbacks. I would expect line moves on him. I would expect money to come in on him on the overnights and early in the morning with that 4.74 ERA and the 3.96 xFIP. 67.5%. I will get this right at some point. A 67.5% left on base percentage last year, and also had an increased walk rate, in particular on the road. He was walking everybody on the road early on in the year. The Diamondbacks pitchers trying to get accustomed to the humidor. There's that Coors Field-esque effect when you go on the road. So that was something the Diamondbacks had to deal with last year in the first half, and it was something that certainly appeared to affect Zach Godley quite a bit. So I'm very interested to see what Godley looks like here in the second year with the humidor. Last year really ramped up his curveball usage up to 40.3%. It was his best pitch in 2017 by a very large margin. His best pitch in 2018 by a large margin, not quite as big. But again, one of those guys that realized or was told, hey, use your best pitch as much as you possibly can. For him, that's his curveball. 40.3% usage likely did contribute to the walk rate increase as well. So Godley, a guy I will be watching very, very closely. And again, when you talk about trying to isolate guys to bet on teams that aren't very good, these are the types of things that you want to look for. A guy in Godley that was very good in 2017, ran into some bad luck and some unfortunate things in 2018, maybe a good time to be back on him. But again, 4.74 ERA, 3.82 FIP, 3.96 xFIP. The market will bet him quickly. And again, I talked about this. I mentioned I had a reader question about my closing line value. These are the things you want to watch for. Guys with high ERAs and low FIPs and xFIPs, or at least lower in Godley's case, are going to take money very regularly. Pitchers with low ERAs, higher FIPs, and higher xFIPs are going to be bet against regularly. So keep that in mind here as we head on into the 2019 baseball season, because you will get some significant closing line value, or at the very least, if you play the overnights or the very early morning lines, then you'll have the opportunity to either let that ticket ride with some closing line value, bet back for some arbitrage, bet back halfway and limit your exposure, something like that. Again, ERA, FIP, and XFIP discrepancies drive line moves in the market. I cannot stress that enough. And when I do my down the line segment during the Bettor's Box, I wind up talking about the same pitchers over and over and over again. That's not because I like to talk about them. It's not because it's by design. It's simply because those are the guys that get the line moves. So you definitely want to isolate those guys in your preseason handicapping, in your research, and expect line moves to come in on those types of pitchers. Move on to the Colorado Rockies here. 91-72 last year, 84.5 their season win total. The two big questions here for Colorado are very, very obvious. Can Kyle Freeland and German Marquez continue to anchor this starting staff? Kyle Freeland last year, 2.85 ERA, 3.67 FIP, 4.22 xFIP. This is a guy that will be bet against in the betting market, and it happened quite a bit last year as well. 82.8% left on base percentage, well below average strikeout percentage, so I can see it. I can understand why the market would expect Freeland's performance not to be sustainable. However, one of the things I've talked about a lot over the last 2 years here on my MLB content is a focus on contact management. And you look at Freeland last year, 19th best average exit velocity against and 11th best average exit velocity against on fly balls and line drives. If you can limit hard contact on fly balls and line drives, you can have a lot of success. Your success is more sustainable than it is for some of the other guys, and I do a lot of that throughout the season, looking at exit velocity, seeing who's actually staying off the barrel, who's actually giving themselves a really good chance at limiting damage on fly balls and line drives. Well, Freeland is a guy that does that. So the market will be against him. I will not rush to fade Kyle Freeland because I think there's more sustainability to that 2.85 ERA and that 3.67 FIP than the 4.22 xFIP would suggest. Now, obviously, he's still at Coors Field, so it's still very dangerous. And I don't think Freeland posts a sub-3 ERA once again. But if he regresses back into the 3.30 or the 3.40 range, we're still talking about a very good starting pitcher. And that's one of the most important things I can talk about with a guy like Kyle Freeland, with a guy like Anibal Sanchez, with some of these other guys out there that really limit exit velocity against. You want to look at degrees of regression. Will Kyle Freeland be a 2.85 ERA guy this year? No, probably not. But will he be a 3.30 or a 3.40? Yeah, he very well could. And keep in mind that, when you look at ERA and when you look at the calculation of ERA, you think about it, a quality start, quote unquote, is 6 innings or more with 3 or fewer earned runs. Well, if you allow 3 runs over 6 innings, that's a 4.50 ERA. If you allow 2 runs over 7 innings, it's a 2.57. If you allow 3 runs over 7 innings, it's a 3.86 ERA. 3 runs over 7 innings is going to keep your team in the game more often than not. So that's why you want to look at degrees of regression and understand that these guys with the lower ERAs, but the higher FIPs and the higher xFIPs, they're probably not going to regress all the way to their xFIPs because they just don't allow home runs at a league average rate. And also, there's something else about them. And as we've gotten the StatCast data, we see exit velocity metrics. That's what it is. It's guys being able to stay off the barrel and give their fielders a chance to make plays. Freeland does that really, really well. So while money will come in against him, and it will probably do so a lot early on in the season here, I will not rush to fade him. If you want to back Kyle Freeland and the Rockies, wait it out. Wait that line out. Let that initial line movement come in to fade Kyle Freeland, then look to pick up a much better price later on in the afternoon. So that would be my recommendation with guys like Freeland. And there are quite a few of those guys out there. I'll talk about a lot of them here as we go throughout the course of the season. Now, German Marquez is a very interesting one. I was way ahead of the curve on Marquez. Not to pat myself on the back, but I saw him improving. He was a guy that had 106 strikeouts in 103 innings in the first half, 259 average against, 328 on base against, 448 slugging percentage against, had allowed 17 home runs. And when you looked at the strikeout numbers and when you looked at the home runs that he was allowing relative to his fly ball percentage, he looked like a guy in line for some positive regression. Now, I will say, I did not expect him to be nearly as good in the second half as he was. 214 average against, 266 on base against, 338 slugging against, only allowed 7 home runs, and struck out 124 in 93 innings. Lowered his fastball usage a little bit on average, more off-speed, more strikeouts, better control, ahead in more counts. Mark has found a really good groove. Now, is he sustainable? We'll wait and see. He's really not in the same breath as Kyle Freeland when it comes to limiting exit velocity against. So that is one of those guys that, I'm not quite as confident in, and I think maybe there will be some opportunities to potentially fade him. But again, I still want to see how he starts the season, if he's able to sustain some of those developments from the second half. When you look at the Rockies here, Nolan Arenado, Trevor Story, very top-heavy offense for this team. Charlie Blackmon was awful defensively last year. Offense dropped off a little bit as well. Kind of wonder if the aging curve is hitting him a little bit. They're going to run out Ian Desmond in center field, which is very scary. For the Rockies here, if they've got guys that are inducing ground balls like a Freeland does, they're very good. Their defense on the infield is very, very solid. Their defense in the outfield is very suspect. So keep that in mind here. When the Rockies have a fly ball type of guy on the mound, like a Chad Bettis or somebody like that, that's a team that could have some difficulties, could have some issues. If they've got a ground ball guy on the mound, like what Tyler Anderson used to be, then they're in much better shape, and maybe you get some unders there on that capacity at Coors Field as well. So, again, the Rockies are a very interesting team for a variety of different reasons. Coors Field is a difficult handicap across the board. But I think the offense, with Arenado and Story, should be solid. I like the Daniel Murphy addition. The bullpen, though, the bullpen is very depth shy. Brian Shaw is officially broken. He is definitely done. They lose Adam Ottavino. So it's really Wade Davis and Seung-Hwan Oh and Scott Oberg, maybe to a degree. This is a depth-shy bullpen that doesn't really have a lot of options right now. So, if they were to go out there and get Craig Kimbrell or somebody like that, it would provide a big boost for them. But right now, I'm pretty worried about this Rockies bullpen. So, in a lot of cases, if I play the Rockies, I'll be looking at first 5 bets with them. Speaking of which, let's talk about John Gray. John Gray last year, 5.12 ERA, 4.08 FIP, 3.47 xFIP. Again, here you see it. High ERA of 5.12, low xFIP of 3.47. The market will back him. And he's a guy that I'm not rushing to back at all. Again, I'm a regression analysis handicapper. I understand what these discrepancies between ERA and xFIP mean. The problem is that John Gray just doesn't have great command. So last year, a high BABIP against, and he had a very low left on base percentage against with over a strikeout per inning. So there's a degree of regression here. And again, I will use that expression a lot here on the show. Will John Gray be better? Yes, absolutely. I'd be stunned if he wasn't. That left on base percentage should positively regress. And also, his BABIP should get a little bit better as well. Does the command get better? I don't know. We'll see. We'll see if Bud Black can work his magic on him. But again, that's a guy that will take money with that 5.12 ERA and that 3.47 xFIP. So if you want to play John Gray or you want to go out there and catch some line value and play some arbitrage, get him early on the overnights, and then decide if you want to play back later in the day. All right, the Los Angeles Dodgers here. 92-71 last year. Season went till 93.5 this year. Look, things don't look great for the Dodgers right now. Clayton Kershaw already hurt. Rich Hill already hurt. Walker Buehler got off to a little bit of a slow start in spring training. The nice thing is they have depth for days. Ross Stripling, Julio Urias, Brock Stewart, Dennis Santana. They've got a lot of guys that they can throw out there to give them 5 or 6 innings. And that's one of the nice things about the Dodgers. And one of the reasons why I have a hard time betting against them from a season win total standpoint is simply that they are deep. They are very deep in the starting rotation. They're deep in the bullpen. And now the offense is even deeper with Corey Seager back, with A.J. Pollock there now, with top prospect Alex Verdugo looking to play a little bit more of a role here on the major league team. I think Cody Bellinger has a power bump coming after kind of regressing a little bit in that department last year. So this Dodgers team, I mean, they're completely stacked because they've got so much depth. They have so many MLB caliber players up and down this roster. And also, they've drafted and developed really well. They've made some very smart trades. They've got some more prospect help coming up the pipeline as well. A lot of things to like about the Dodgers, even though you've got some negatives here with Kershaw and Hill. I don't think that slows them down a whole lot, truth be told. Rich Hill and Clayton Kershaw, if they're good for 130 innings, that's perfect for the Dodgers. You kind of protect them a little bit for that postseason push. I'm not worried about the Dodgers rotation all that much here. But again, high season win total 93.5. Pretty hard to dive at one of those. Player to watch here is Ross Stripling. I'm curious to see what happens with him, both with his personal stats and in the betting market. Because last year, 3.02 ERA, 3.42 FIP, 2.99 xFIP, elite strikeout and walk rates, 86.1% left on base percentage, should probably regress. But he also had a 16.4% home run to fly ball percentage, which should probably get better. So curious to see which way these numbers swing for Ross Stripling. Curious to see how the market rates him here for this season. But definitely a very solid guy, and somebody very good to fill in while Kershaw and Hill are on the mend. Let's talk about the San Diego Padres here. 66 and 96 last year. Season win total 78.5. I talked about the Cincinnati Reds yesterday as a team that I think expectations are a little bit too lofty for them. I think it's the same thing here with the San Diego Padres, because you've got a team here in the Padres that has lost a lot of games for a long period of time. And I get it. They get Manny Machado. They bring in Ian Kinsler, who should be a big help for them on this infield. Full seasons of Franchi Cordero and Franmil Reyes. It's Luis Urias is going to be playing more often. It's one of those things where this team is actively getting better, and you can see that. But will that translate, into 13 more wins this year? I don't really know. Who is Hunter Renfroe? Hunter Renfroe in 2017, a 270 weighted on base average against righties, a 64 WRC plus. So he was 36% below league average against righties last year in 2017. Last year, 335 WOBA, 112 WRC plus. And I think we may see this inconsistency from guys like Cordero, from guys like Reyes, maybe from a Francisco Mejia if he actually comes up and sticks around. I think this is kind of a higher variance team offensively. I think there are going to be days where this team goes out there and hangs a number. There are also going to be days where this team goes out there and gets shut out, because you've got a lot of swing and miss in this lineup. You've got a lot of power threats, but a lot of swing and miss. And that's something that I don't necessarily love backing on a regular basis. Now, when they face guys who aren't strikeout artists, I'll probably wind up with some Padres tickets at that point in time. So not to say I'm going to shun them completely, but I think you really have to pick and choose your spots here with this Padres team. Now, I will also say the promise and potential for this rotation looks much, much better than last year. You'll get a full season of Joey Lucchesi, who I'll talk about in a second. Chris Paddock has been the surprise of spring training. Looks like he's going to win himself a spot in this rotation after barely pitching at Double-A last year. Matt Strahm coming back from injury, a lot of buzz for him. Eric Lauer was better in the second half. The bullpen's pretty good here. I think the Padres starting staff is much more competent than it was last season. I think there's a much higher upside for this group of guys. And also, with the strength of this bullpen and the depth of this bullpen, you don't have to ask these starters to do too much. You get me through 5 innings with a couple runs allowed, we turn it over to the bullpen and see what happens. The Padres are going to be a lot more competitive this year. Again, does it translate to 13 more wins? Well, I'm not really sure. But I do know for a fact they will be a lot more competitive this season, a much more interesting team when you do have some of those Padres tickets. Player to watch here is Joey Lucchesi, 4.08 ERA, 4.31 FIP, 3.45 xFIP. Again, another guy with that ERA to xFIP discrepancy. I think the market will like him a lot. 20.4% home run to fly ball percentage last year. That was his only real blemish. I mean, everything else was either good or average for Lucchesi. So as long as he doesn't allow the long ball at the same rate this season, I would expect him to post an ERA in the 375, 365 range. Good ballpark, much improved defensive team here for the Padres. I think that Lucchesi is a guy that we do want to look for spots to back. And again, we'll probably have to do it early in the betting process because the market will like him a lot. But that is the thing with the Padres here. They are better defensively. They're better offensively. The pitching staff looks better. The bullpen is still solid. Maybe they do get to this point. I mean, I wouldn't bet on it. I wouldn't bet on a 13-game improvement, but I certainly do expect them to be improved, maybe in that 75, 76 range, and maybe take that next step forward in 2020. But the Padres, I think we will get some spots to play the Padres here this season. Finally, one more team to talk about in the National League West is the San Francisco Giants. 73-89 last year, 73.5 their season win total here for this year. And look, when you talk about this Giants team, I mean, last year, they weren't a bad team until the month of September. And that was really the big thing for them. They were 5-21 in the month of September. So they had a bunch of guys had awful seasons. They had 68 wins coming into the final month of the season. Their season win total here is 73.5. So I think that's a very interesting line. I mean, this is one of those divisions where somebody has to lose games. It does look like it'll be the Giants. But still, for their season win total to be 73.5, when they were probably on pace to win, 78, 79 games last year, that's pretty interesting to me. And really, a lot of their veteran players were bad all at once last year. You look at them, Brandon Belt, 107 WRC+, so only 7% above league average. Buster Posey, 106. Andrew McCutchen, the only other above-average hitter using weighted runs created plus. And again, that is adjusted for park factor, so it does take into account how hard it is to hit at home in San Francisco. But, Evan Longoria collapsed. He was 15% below league average. Brandon Crawford wasn't very good. Joe Panik was terrible. So, you look at these guys, there's some track records here. There's some bounce-back potential here. On the other hand, another major operation for Buster Posey. You wonder how long he can keep being a catcher for 120 games a year. Brandon Belt has concussion issues, and he plays first base. If he's at first base, where do you put Buster Posey? Well, he's got to go behind the plate. But Buster Posey off of a major hip operation, how long can you have him back there in the crouch to the point where he's still effective? So it looks pretty rough for this team here in that respect, where I don't know how they're going to score runs. I think the rotation could be better. I think the bullpen could be decent. I think we play a lot of unders with the Giants this year. A lot of unders. The bullpen isn't that bad. And again, I think the rotation, especially with the home park factor, has some upside to it here. Off Madison Bumgarner can bounce back. And also Jeff Samardzija. And he's the guy I'll highlight here as we look to wrap up this Friday edition of the show. Jeff Samardzija last year, in 10 starts, 6.25 ERA, 5.44 FIP, 6.18 xFIP. He was hurt. It was not pretty. It was not pretty at all. But you look at him in 2017, 4.42 ERA, 3.61 FIP, 3.60 xFIP. In 2016, 3.81 ERA, 3.85 FIP, 3.96 xFIP. So if he's back in that range, even with this lackluster offense, Samardzija is going to be more competitive. The Giants are going to be more competitive. Many believe in that bounce back for Samardzija. So I'm not sure if I do as of yet, but again, I think this Giants team will be better in the pitching department, and offensively, who really knows how they're going to end up looking. But I can tell you that, with the Giants, again, 5-21 last year in the month of September, well, Bruce Bochy has announced that he's retiring after the season. I do not expect the Giants to completely just mail it in the month of September like they did last year. I would expect them to play hard over the duration of the season, which is why, even though the Padres are improved, even though I think the Diamondbacks could be a little bit better than people expect, even though the Rockies and Dodgers are both solid teams, maybe the Giants can go over this 73.5. They were on pace to go well over last year. Now, they weren't going over their season win total probably, but they were on pace to go over this last year. So, we'll see. It's largely the same team. The only thing they're missing is McCutchen, and they may have better health fortunes in the starting rotation. So, could be interesting to watch the Giants here this year for a variety of different reasons. So, again, more shelf life here on these MLB division previews that I've done. You can find the individual segments over at BangTheBook.com, also on iTunes, Spotify, and of course you can find Bang the Book Radio just about anywhere out there that hosts podcasts. So, again, you want to make sure that you're looking for you're looking for good content in the lead up to the Major League Baseball season. I think I provide a lot of that here at BangTheBook.com. So please check out everything that we have going on for the Major League Baseball season. Just one more quick reminder I want to throw out to you here as we head on into the second round of March Madness, start looking at potential Sweet 16 matchups and things of that sort. Head on over to PropSwap.com/BTB. Go look at what's available over there in that prop and futures marketplace at PropSwap. Lots of stuff posted for the NCAA tournament as well as MLB, NHL, NBA, some college hockey stuff out there as well. So plenty of things for you to look to get involved in. Pick up some investments, sell some of your investments, get some cash out of them right now over at PropSwap.com/BTB.